Hello everyone, welcome back to Procrastinate with Books. Today, in the essence of Pride Month, I have some great recommendations for you all that are all LGBTQ plus category and have the themes and tropes of similar vibes, and not just one or two, but I think I'll be sharing 30 plus book recommendations for you all in every genre so that each one of you can have something to read in this Pride Month. If you are looking for certain recommendations in the LGBTQ category, I think you are at the right place and we should tune in further. Starting off with the non-fiction category, I have a memoir to recommend for you, In the Dream House, which is a story of a narrative tale induced with a bit of horror and other elements into it. And this book, I have been told, is the most strangest memoir that you can ever read. It has hints of queer and LGBTQ elements into it, which makes it qualified for the non-fiction category. And since this is a memoir, but it doesn't really sound to you as a memoir while you are actually reading it, I definitely think a lot of people will be able to enjoy it. Even people who actually love fiction would be able to have a hold on this book very well. So my next book in the same category of non-fiction is another great memoir, which is also classified as biography of the author who just understands her preferential choices based on her sexuality, and later on she also gets to know that her dad was also gay, and just a few days after that he dies. Now this particular one is a graphic novel illustrated book edition, so you can definitely enjoy it in a very light and fun manner. And even if you are reading a non-fiction or preferably a biography in this case, you would still be able to enjoy it because of its descriptions and cartoonic illustrations that are there throughout the book. In the next category of fiction, the first book that I have for you is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, this probably is the only TJR book that I've been very fond of for a very long time. Since the time I started reading this book, this was an absolute 5 out of 5 star. Until date, I'm recommending this book to all my audiences. The book is actually focused here about a Hollywood star who is now aging, but through her days, she has lived a very glamorous yet scandalous life. And when a reporter is chosen to complete her interview and get it published into a book format, the whole story of her life is actually narrated through that book. Now, because this book covers a wide array of the spectrum of LGBTQ community, from displaying different relationships between the gay, lesbian, and even queer categories, I think this would be a wonderful recommendation, especially from the Pride Month perspective. And if fiction is your jam, I think this book will never disappoint you. My next book, On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous, is another beautiful contemporary fiction that is classified as also very emotional book. So be aware before tuning into that book. The story here is about a son who is writing a letter to his mother who cannot basically read, and there he's just opening the gates of floods, and all the emotions are being poured out into that letter, confessing things they had never said to her mother ever before. The book talks about various topics such as classes, discriminations, races, masculinity, and even trauma to a certain extent, and how people are basically dealing with it, how it's actually affecting their lives. So those topics are discussed at great length into this book. So you might want to keep the disclaimer tab open if you're going to try this one out. But otherwise, it's a beautiful tale of telling your own story in your own words rather than other people dictating it from their perspective and telling the world about who you are and what you want to be. Next two books are in the classic category, The Picture of Dorian Gray and Caramella, which are two very great books. The Picture of Dorian Gray is basically featuring around a person who is trying to reach the level of perfection into the whole painting, but his own inner self is depreciating because of a lot of things that he has been doing, and that has been depicted metaphorically with the amount of killings that's been going on into the book. Whereas Caramella is basically considered as the whole stepping stone of the vampire and Gothic world, which were basically written later into Frankenstein and other Dracula by Bram Stoker kind of stories. This is the very first story that was ever published regarding a vampire related theme. So it has a bit infused horror into it, Caramella, from my perspective, but both are very short and very good to read, especially from the classics category. Stepping into the historical fiction category, the next book is my recent read, The House of Doors, which is set up between the timelines of Europe, basically Old England, and the Old Chinese Empire when the Chinese revolutions were taking place. And it's set up around 1920s, I would say. The story is discussing a few main protagonists who have moved from England and settled into China and certain places around those. And from there, it also mentions a certain timelines of the Pangnam history where people were basically moving a lot because of all the things that were happening in China. And so the whole story takes place in that arena. My next recommendation in historical fiction is Killingly, which is basically adapted from a true crime unsolved mystery that is still not being solved up to date. The author here takes the whole story and evolves it into a literally fiction tale where she depicts a girl who has basically disappeared from the boarding school, and then there are detectives after her trying to find what might have happened, and she is basically speculating her life, what steps she would have taken considering this was in the timelines of 19th century. What would women actually do to go through unconventional paths and pursue different things? Jumping into the next category, romance, which you might already know is not my favorite jam. So I was having a really hard time thinking through which is the romantic book that I read and I would actually like to recommend. While I was researching for the list of books that I've read, I came across Red, White, and Royal Blue, which was a pretty average read for me, but some people basically find it quite worthy. I don't, so I won't recommend that to you. I also came across We They Both Die in the End, which was basically, I don't even remember what the story was about because I fell asleep twice reading that book. So I won't recommend these two books to you. But what I would recommend to you is These Violent Delights and Our Violet Ends Duology by Chloe Gong, which is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And being a Shakespearean fan, that being depicted very properly into the books, this was a big yay for me. So I do recommend these two books to you. This is a duology, and it's also set up in China and Hong Kong and Shanghai, basically, where different people from different races, mafia races, are trying to control the land and around the people. And there are these, obviously, the Romeo and Juliets in different families who are basically anti against each other and they fall in love, and then there's the whole story around them. My next two quick recommendations for my mythology lovers is one in the category of Greek mythology and the other in the category of Norse mythology. For Greek mythology, I think Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller is one of the by far most favorite book in Greek mythology category. It does make you cry if you pay attention. And if you are just like, rambling around 10 other things and just listening to an audiobook and not paying attention to those stanzas and the lines spoken in there, it won't make you cry, obviously, but it does make you cry if you pay attention. So do pay attention. The Sword of Soma is the first book in the Magnus Chase and Gods of Asgard series, and this is written by Rick Rodman. So remember Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief? Be it the series of Olympians or the movie series, if you have watched any of those and you found them interesting, do check this book out. For my graphic novel lovers, I have the Heartstopper series. It's a 4 book series which basically is revolving around the story of two male protagonists who are having different interests in their life and basically are poles apart from each other, and they get into a sort of friendship and then things gradually develop from there. And I'll let you read the book to just get into the whole story without spoiling it any further. So if graphic novels is your jam, you do like gay related stories and you would like to explore something in this arena, I think try this out. From the cover of this book, you might already have guessed our next genre, fantasy, which is my personal favorite, and I'm so excited to again recommend this book to you. I will not stop recommending this book to you until and unless everyone reads this book. The House Under the Cerulean Sea is a beautiful magical tale by T.J. Klune, where a few set of orphans who have different abilities are living in that house, and then there's this person who has been sent to inspect that house, and then the story from there intertwines. Won't spoil it for you, won't give you the details. You should try it out. It has magical realism properties, fantasy elements, and also font family trope into it. So if that's your jam, check it. My next recommendation is from the Grisha universe, the duology of Six of Crows and the Crooked Kingdom, which is basically a beautiful tale around the three people whom you must have seen in the Shadow and the Bone online series, depicting as the Crows trio, and they are the most interesting characters I've ever read. Apart from that, the book also has a sideline track story of Nina and Matthias. So if you know Nina the Waffle Queen and you have heard stories about her, I think you should give this book a try. But I would recommend you to read this book in the right order, that is, reading the Grisha verse first and then jumping on to this book, because otherwise you will be missing certain aspects of it, and I would highly recommend you to read it in the sequence. A Gothic horror fans seeking certain LGBT trope in their book lines, I think I have two recommendations for you. One, The Haunting of the Hill House, which is basically surrounded around the storylines of people called upon a haunted house to inspect the events that are happening there, and then there they see and come face to face with things that they would have never imagined in their wildest dreams. The next book, House of Hollow, is the story of three different girls who are basically an outcast from the society, and they all three have three very different abilities. Now, the eldermost sister one day suddenly disappears, and initially they think that she has just gone somewhere away and closed out on everybody, but later they realize she might have been kidnapped, and so the younger two siblings actually go around chasing the last crumbs of bread that have been spread around by her sister where she was last, and basically detecting out what things might have happened. And there they are coming face to face with horrors of things that might have happened, and the people who are involved in this whole mystery are not really the best kind of people you want to come face to face with. So that's the whole mystery story Gothic retelling that's been told in here. Our next category of thrillers and mysteries brings me to the next book, Ace of Spades, which is basically a high school drama. This is recommended for the fans of One of Us is Lying kind of books, where the whole plot is revolving around the academy where all the students are mostly perfect in their perfect lives. But someone is now targeting certain people, that is, students in this case, and bringing their personal secrets into the limelight around what they have done to get to the position that they are. And now, because they understand that they are being targeted, they really plan to find out who's that person who is playing this nasty game at the school. This has mystery thriller detective vibes and targeted basically for the age group of YA category. Which brings me to our next book, They Never Learn, which is featuring a female protagonist who is an English professor at a university, and each year she basically targets a man who is the worst man at that university at that present scenario, and then she plots the whole death of that person meticulously, going through each level of details. But because there are a number of bodies piling up throughout the years, the university has finally decided to look into the matter, and now she has to charm her way in and be involved in this whole detective thing. And finally, to conclude this video, I would like to recommend you two different series that also feature LGBTQ trope. The first one is The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare, and the next one is the Folklore Trilogy by Holy Black. Both of them are featuring very different world build-ups. The Mortal Instruments has the world build-up of vampires, werewolves, and all those things, whereas the Folklore has an altogether different set of characters and tropes, magic, fae, and other lords and creatures that are being involved. So you can give them both a try equally. These are specifically for people who actually look forward to binging the whole series together, because all the parts of these two series are out now and you can easily go and binge read all the parts together. There are even further parts if you want to get deeper into the series, but these are complete on their own, so you can give them a try. And with that, my friends, I'll take your leave and catch up with you very soon in my next video. Until then, keep your coffee strong and your TBRs long. Goodbye.